Title: I woke up from a year-long coma, and my wife had no idea I heard everything. I don't remember the accident. People have asked me over and over again what the last thing I remember was. And the truth, I don't know. One moment I was living my life. The next I was drowning in darkness, trapped in a world where time didn't move. They call it a coma, a deep, unresponsive state. But what no one tells you, what the doctors never even consider, is that sometimes you can still hear everything. For one whole year, I was locked inside my own body, unable to move, unable to speak. But I could hear, and what I heard, it changed me forever. At first, it was all a blur, voices drifting in and out, beeping machines, the sterile smell of antiseptics. I had no sense of time, no way of knowing how long I had been like that. All I knew was that I existed, that I was still here. The first voice I recognized was hers, Melissa, my wife. "Baby, I'm here. Can you hear me?" Her voice was soft, trembling with sadness. She sounded broken, and even though I couldn't respond, something inside me warmed at the sound. My wife, my love. She hadn't left me, she was here. But then, as the days stretched on, things started to change. Her visits became different. She still spoke to me, still touched my hand, but there was something off. At first, I couldn't place it. But then I heard the first whisper. I don't know how much longer I can do this." I wanted to scream. Do what? Stay by my side? Support me? What was she saying? And then a man's voice answered, "I know, Mel. It's been months. You have to start thinking about yourself. He wouldn't want you to waste your life waiting for a miracle." Who the hell was that? Over the next few weeks, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't alone. This other man, was visiting her in my hospital room. They spoke in hushed tones, but I heard everything. At first, it was subtle. "I miss you," he whispered. "I hate seeing you like this." "I miss you too," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But he's still here. I can't just—" "He's gone, Mel. This isn't living. You know that." I was right there, and they were talking about me like I was already dead. I was screaming inside my own head, but no one could hear me. No one knew I was still there. And that was the beginning of the longest, most agonizing betrayal I could have never imagined. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. I lost all concept of time, but I never lost the sound of their voices. They grew bolder, more careless. And then one day they kissed right in front of me. I heard the rustle of fabric, the soft gasp, and then Melissa's whisper, "Not here, not in front of him. Come on, he doesn't know, he'll never know." I knew. I knew everything. I was trapped in my own body, forced to listen as my wife, the woman I had promised to love forever, betrayed me in the worst way possible. She wasn't grieving me, she was replacing me. And the worst part, I couldn't do a damn thing about it. I thought I had heard it all. I thought nothing could be worse than hearing her say she loved another man. But then came the day that shattered what little was left of me. "The doctors say they don't know if he'll ever wake up," Melissa murmured. "It's been almost a year, Sean. What am I supposed to do?" Sean. His name was Sean. I finally had a name for the man who had taken my place. "Mel, maybe it's time to let go. The doctor said—" "I know what they said," she snapped, her voice breaking. "But pulling the plug, I can't do that." My blood ran cold. Pull the plug? They were thinking about killing me? "Mel, listen to me," Sean said softly. "You don't have to make any decisions now, but you deserve to live your life. And if the time comes, I'll be here. Always." And then she sobbed in his arms. My wife sobbed in another man's arms, mourning me before I was even gone. I wanted to wake up more than anything in the world. I wanted to scream, to thrash, to grab her and force her to look me in the eyes. But I couldn't, not yet. All I could do was wait, because if I ever woke up, she was going to pay. I don't know what changed. Maybe it was sheer willpower, maybe it was rage, maybe it was fate. But one night, as Melissa sat by my bedside scrolling through her phone while Sean texted her, I moved my finger. It was small, barely noticeable, but I felt it. A rush of energy surged through me. I wasn't gone. I spent the next few days testing my limits. First, a twitch of my fingers, then a shift in my breathing. Slowly, agonizingly, I clawed my way back from the abyss. I wasn't going to let them take my life away. Then, one morning, Melissa walked into the room, coffee in hand, and sat down like she had done 1,000 times before. She sighed, opening her phone, probably texting him. I forced everything I had into my throat, my lips, my voice. It hurt like hell. But then, I spoke. "Hey, honey." The coffee cup dropped from her hands and shattered on the floor. Melissa's eyes went wide with horror, and for the first time in a year, I smiled. I wasn't supposed to remember anything. That's what Melissa thought. For a year, I had been nothing more than a body in a hospital bed, a husk, a man on the edge of death. But even in that darkness, I had heard everything, every whisper, every lie, every stolen touch she shared with her lover in the same room where I lay motionless. And now, I was awake. Melissa sat beside my hospital bed, holding my hand like she was the perfect devoted wife. The moment I opened my eyes, her face had crumpled into a mess of relief, love, and crocodile tears. "Oh my God, baby, you're back," she had whispered, kissing my hand. I almost laughed. If she knew what I knew, she'd be running instead of clinging to me like a loving wife. I didn't react. Not yet. I just watched her. The doctor had explained that my body was weak, that I had a long road to recovery, that I might even suffer from memory loss. Melissa clung to that last part. I saw it in her eyes. She was hoping I didn't remember. That's when I made a choice. I wasn't going to scream at her. I wasn't going to confront her outright. No, I was going to make her sweat. I was going to make her doubt every move she made. I was going to drag her through the same kind of hell I lived through while trapped in that bed. And when the moment was right, I was going to destroy her. The next few days were about observation. Melissa never left my side. Not because she loved me, because she was terrified of what I might say. Every time a nurse or doctor checked in, she'd answer questions for me, as if she was trying to control the narrative. "He doesn't remember much," she said sweetly to the neurologist. I just stared at her, silent. "Oh, but I do," I finally said, my voice hoarse from months of disuse. She tensed. Just a flicker, just for a second. "Do you, sweetheart?" she asked, voice light, controlled. I nodded weakly. "I remember voices, conversations, a lot of things I probably wasn't supposed to hear." The blood drained from her face. "Gotcha." She laughed, trying to brush it off. "Oh, baby, you were dreaming. The doctor said coma patients experience weird hallucinations." I smiled. Just a small, knowing smile. Yeah, maybe. She didn't know if I was bluffing, and that was the first crack in her perfect act. After a week, I was moved back home. Our home, the one I had worked so hard for. Melissa was too perfect. Making me soup, fluffing my pillows, tucking me in, overcompensating. She was treating me like a fragile doll, afraid I'd break, or worse, remember. I let her twist in the wind. At dinner one night, she was feeding me some homemade pasta, chatting nervously. "You know, the hospital said your brain might create false memories, so if you ever feel like something's off, it's just your mind adjusting." I met her gaze. "False memories, huh?" "Yeah," she nodded quickly. "Like things that feel real but never happened. Like you're moaning in my hospital room? Like his voice telling you he loves you while I was right there?" I smiled slightly. "Good to know." She exhaled, relieved. Stupid woman. She didn't realize that every time she tried to convince me I remembered nothing, I only remembered more. I needed to see her lover. I needed to see how far this betrayal went. I pretended to struggle with my memory. I'd ask Melissa vague questions, watch her reactions. "So, who was around while I was out?" I asked one morning, sipping coffee. She hesitated, just for a second. "Oh, just family. A few close friends." Liar. "No one else?" I pressed. "No, of course not, baby." She didn't mention him. I had no proof of who he was yet, but I had a name. I had his voice burned into my brain, so I decided to force him into the light. One evening, as Melissa scrolled through her phone, I muttered absent-mindedly, "I feel like I should text Daniel. He was around a lot, right?" She froze. Her grip on her phone tightened. Gotcha again. "Oh, she swallowed. Daniel? I mean, he visited once or twice." I tilted my head. "Really? Because I swear I remember him being there a lot." Her breath hitched. She was crumbling. I sipped my coffee and smiled. Now I had a name. Melissa started acting strange, more anxious, more paranoid. I started dropping subtle hints to mess with her head. "I keep remembering weird things from the hospital, like voices, yours, and someone else's. I had this dream where I heard you talking to someone, saying you missed them. It felt so real. Isn't it crazy how the brain stores memories even when you think it's asleep?" Every time she got paler and paler. Then one night I heard her sneaking out of bed. She went downstairs. I followed. She was on the phone, with him. "I don't know, Danny. He's acting weird. It's like he knows something." A pause, then a male voice. "What do you mean, babe? What's he saying?" "Babe." I clenched my fists. It was all true. Melissa sighed. "Just little things, like he remembers stuff. But that's impossible, right?" My blood boiled. I stepped into the light, watching her freeze as she realized I was standing right there. I stared at her, at the phone in her trembling hand. "Who's Danny?" I asked, voice cold. She dropped the phone. Now, the real game began. Melissa's face went pale as the phone clattered to the floor. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching her squirm. "Who's Danny?" I asked again, voice calm. She blinked rapidly, trying to compose herself. "Baby, it's not. I was just—" I picked up the phone. Her lover was still on the line. Silence. I smiled. "Let's play." I lifted the phone to my ear. "Hey, Danny. Long time no see." "Oh, wait. Scratch that. I mean, long time no talk. But we've seen a lot of each other, haven't we?" A shaky breath. Then, click. He hung up. Coward. I let the phone drop onto the table. Melissa just stood there, lips parted, hands trembling. I can explain." I chuckled. "Can you?" Her eyes darted around the room, desperate for an escape. "I didn't. It wasn't—" "You didn't what, Melissa?" I stepped forward. "Didn't cheat? Didn't whisper how much you missed him while I was lying there? Didn't talk about pulling the plug?" Her mouth snapped shut. The color drained from her face. I smiled. There it is. The truth settling in. "I never—" "Shut up." She flinched. Good. For a whole year I had listened to her betrayal, the soft laughter, the whispered "I love yous," the fake tears she shed when the doctors came in. She thought she got away with it. She thought I'd never know. And now, she was standing in front of a ghost who came back to haunt her. I took another step forward, towering over her. She took a step back. "You know what's funny?" I murmured. "The entire time I was lying there, I thought about what I'd do if I ever woke up. Would I scream at you? Would I break down? Would I just walk away?" She swallowed hard. I smirked. But then I realized, why settle for one when I can do all three? I reached into my pocket and pulled out my old phone, the one Melissa never knew I had access to. I clicked a button. Her voice filled the room. "I can't wait to see you again. I miss you so much." Melissa's breath hitched. Another clip. Danny's voice, low and teasing. "Maybe one day we won't have to sneak around." And then, the final nail in the coffin, Melissa's voice. "I know, baby, I wish he'd never wake up." She collapsed onto the couch. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no, this isn't— You weren't supposed to—" I leaned in. "Supposed to what? Wake up?" She was shaking. Good. Feel what I felt. I turned and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" she cried, scrambling after me. I opened the door. Two men stood outside. Divorce attorney, realtor. Melissa gasped. "Meet my lawyer and my new real estate agent," I said casually. "Since you're going to be moving out, I figured we'd put the house on the market immediately." Her eyes widened in panic. You can't do this." "Oh, I can." I smirked. "Turns out when your wife tries to pull the plug on you, the court doesn't look too kindly on that." Tears welled in her eyes. "Baby, please." I tilted my head. "Baby? Oh, Melissa, you killed that word the moment you let another man call you that." She sobbed. But I wasn't done. I reached into my jacket and pulled out an envelope. I tossed it on the table. What is this?" she whispered. "Your next nightmare." She hesitated before opening it. Her hand shook as she pulled out the papers. Printouts of bank transactions, her bank transactions, large withdrawals, hotel receipts, secret credit card purchases. And then, the final paper, a lawsuit for fraud. Her face crumbled. No, you used our joint account to pay for your little affairs," I said smoothly. "Which means, legally, that's marital fraud." Tears streamed down her face. "Please don't do this. We can fix this, I laughed. "Melissa, we were broken the second you let another man into our home." I stepped back toward the door. "The divorce papers will be in your inbox by the morning." She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. I looked down at her one last time, the woman who thought she had won, the woman who had lost everything. I turned to leave, and then, just for fun, I glanced back and said, "Oh, and Melissa? Danny's wife says hi." The sound she made, priceless.